Hi, and welcome to Data Analysis for Community Assessments. The focus of today's training is going to be on providing some ideas on data analysis, specifically around the community action planning process. My name is Lawrence Heiner. I'm the Director of Training and Technical Assistance at the California Community Action Partnership Association. And today's presentation will be relatively short and is part of our collection of data assessment tools for community action. So specifically today, we're going to look into 10 analysis questions that are designed to convert your community needs assessment data into community action plan information. That idea of taking things from data to information is a big deal in Roma and in all of our reporting as we look at the raw numbers that we have at our disposal or other feedback that we collect and how we turn that into information that we can use for planning and implementation. This is a foundational part of the Roma cycle. We're squarely in the assessment phase at the top of the screen there. And as we move into planning, the information that we glean from our assessments are going to start informing the planning process. So that's right where we are, probably somewhere on that orange arrow, before we get into the rest of the Roma cycle, including implementation, achievement of results, and evaluation. We will look at some of the materials that we collect along the way to include in our assessment. So we don't leave those other elements of the Roma cycle alone. They're still an important part of the assessment process. We just use them as data collection areas and how to inform our plan. So the main types of data that we're going to work with right now are quantifiable and qualifiable data. Your quantifiable data is your numeric data, and at some level or other, it becomes a lot easier to make comparisons and illustrate percentages and that sort of thing when you can work with quantifiable data. A lot of the data that we get is quantifiable, and we record that. A lot more, particularly in our assessment, in our community assessment process, is qualifiable data, which is linguistic. That L is our clue for linguistic, meaning that this is all narrative data. This is stuff in words that we need to process and interpret. And in a lot of ways, we can take that qualifiable data and interpret it into quantifiable data using some Roma tools. So there are a variety of sources that we use to develop our community needs assessment. And just starting from the left column, those aggregated public data sources for community action agencies in particular. Start with that first one, the CAP Data Hub is probably one of your best, most comprehensive data resource tools. And that's a live link. So when I share this document out for those that are watching the recording, that live link will take you to a data hub that is free for all community action agencies to use. Outside of community action, this tool does cost money, upwards of $1,000 a year to access the information. So community action agencies are in a good spot to use the data that's included in that data hub. That data hub includes things like census data, most recent count data, and other data sources outside of the US Census. So it becomes a very comprehensive data tool. It also outputs the data in a couple of useful ways, including Microsoft Word format. So you can copy and paste information from that data hub directly into your community action plan. The My Community Explorer is a tool that's offered directly through the U.S. Census Bureau, and it is amazing. It has lots of graphically rich tools to use as you are pulling together your plan. So while the CAP Data Hub does have a lot of the U.S. Census, perhaps all of the U.S. Census data in it, it does not necessarily display it the same way that the My Community Explorer can and does display that data. There's an outside chance as well that you'll find additional elements in the My Community Explorer that are not listed in the CAP Data Hub. So I haven't done the comparison in depth myself, but I wanted to show both of those resources because they're out there and they are very robust for you to use. And a big reason for using those tools deal with the geography and the demographics that we include in our plan. So having a good sense of what is available, what's set right now, that you don't have to lift more than a couple of fingers to access, is really valuable when you're pulling your plan together. This is also information that consultants tend to use and may come about that data their own way. You know that as part of a community action agency that you have access to these tools for free. Okay, the CSBG annual report you'll want to look at as a data source because you'll take last year's information and compare it against the data that you collect. It's helpful to take a look at more than one previous year's data so that you can detect trends in your data. So looking at CSBG annual reports is really, really helpful. If you do not have access to your years 2023 and prior, reach out to CalCAPA or any of the other associations across the network, and we should be able to get access to past reports and a little bit of analysis. So stay in touch with us for that. But know that you can always review your own report and look for trends and things that stand out as you compare against your current data. Um, Another tool that you can use are any of your CSBG organizational standards that are not met. So if you have those org standards that are maybe difficult to meet or you just have not met yet, those are important to include as data in your plan because not only do we look at what we are going to offer our communities as a whole and to our families and individuals through our programming, we also want to be aware of our agency's capacity to deliver those things. So looking at our org standards is a big clue as to where the agency may be able to apply some energy in the coming plan. And then the last thing, and certainly not the least thing, and the thing that I think a lot of folks are really excited about during the community needs assessment process, are the surveys, focus groups, and town halls that we hold in order to collect the most current information that we can. This we do at a concerted level. A lot of times, the agency will take on this task of conducting surveys, focus groups, and town halls, and consolidating that information into a needs assessment. Um, that's not the only way to collect that information. Those surveys, focus groups, and town halls may have been delivered through some other mechanism in your community. The important thing is that the data that you're looking at in that feedback is timely so that it applies to your assessment process, and that it's relevant. You know, that it's your community that you're looking at, that it includes all of the community members that you're hoping to include in your assessment. So if you find that there are gaps in that feedback, that could be an area where you want to hold your own or in some other way collect that feedback information from the community. Okay, so as you're pulling all these data sources together, we need to, in some way, kind of synthesize them into an intelligent community action plan. And of course, in California, of course, we're using a common kind of an application style template to fill out our community action plan. And the next series of questions that I have for you will hopefully help you get a large way there in filling in the community action plan. How do you take a look at the data that it is or that you're collecting and process that in a way that makes sense in your plan? Now, these are 10 questions. We could go on and on, I believe, with how we query our data, ask questions of our data, so that it can give us more information. But these 10, I think, will give us at least a good starting point and cover some of the larger areas of the plan. Know that you use data throughout the plan, and the more you can reference specifics in your data, the stronger your plan becomes. Right? What you do not see on this list right now are additional sort of testimonials that you receive, ongoing feedback, and customer service responses, feedback that you get from your clientele on how it is that they are receiving your services, how valuable they are. Okay, so you'd want to include that as well. All right, so 10 questions. As I mentioned before, you'll all receive a copy of this so you can include this in your analysis process. So the first thing that we want to ask of our data are what are the most prevalent causes and conditions of poverty in our service area, and why is that useful? Well, we need to break down the demographics because we need to know that our interventions are working in ways that align with other data collection tools. In our CAP, and the CAP, of course, is the Community Action Plan. So we'll just call it CAP for now. So in your CAP alignment, it directly supports org standard 3.2 and part 2, the causes and conditions of poverty in the template. So you take that information and put it in that part of your application. Question 2, which needs identified in the community needs assessment are we currently not addressing? Or are we currently addressing, and which are we not, and why not? So it's not to say that we've been totally missing things. There are reasons why. So this helps the agency prioritize and take a look at the mission to make sure that we're aligned in our mission with what the needs in the community are. This is applicable to table 1 in your CAP plan, the needs table, and that also informs the resource allocation discussion in table 2. So it very much helps with prioritization. You will find, hopefully, that there are needs that you do not necessarily meet directly with the actions of your agency and that you may be simply aware of. And that's in an effort to connect the dots. We'll see that several of these questions are there to help us get a complete picture of services that are available in our geographic service areas. Question 3, how do our internal service data and CSBG annual report outputs and outcomes compare to external indicators of need? So when we're looking at the actual outcomes and outputs of our services, does that align with the data that we're getting from the community? Right. So does it match essentially that, why it's useful? We're trying to see if what we're doing is really what the community needs the most. And that goes back a little bit into our prioritization from the last question. And then in your CAP, that's going to support the Roma planning and service delivery system sections as you identify what's fitting. Question 4, what geographic areas within our service area or within our service region show the highest concentrations of poverty-related challenges. And this is simply a direct alignment piece. So in the CAP plan, we are in part one required a narrative where we are describing how and where the geographic focus is for the needs in our community. Of course, this is also going to be helpful internally as you start to identify like community level needs and where resources are physically located for accessibility. Question 5, how does client satisfaction or testimony from low-income residents align with or challenge the findings from public data sources? Why do we find this useful? Um, it talks back to community voice and that we're not just using public data as our rationale for programs, that we are considering what our people are saying out in the community as a direct source of information in our planning process. So that helps us out with org standards 1.1, 1.2, and then also with part 2, the causes and conditions of poverty as part of that community action plan. Question 6, which community sectors like education, private, and faith-based, are already addressing priority needs, and where are the service gaps? This is really helpful as we clearly don't want to duplicate services. We also want to be able to map them out, right? So besides avoiding duplication, we're really trying to see what's available. So when we have an opportunity to link up with other services, that we can do that. That is a win-win most of the time. We are helping our clients find the services that they need. And then our partners that are out there in the mix are getting additional clients for their services. So as you know, sometimes it's difficult to just run outreach campaigns to make people aware of the services. And this really works in that community effort to get people um, uh, aware of what is available as part of the social safety net. Question 7, what indicators like FNPIs and so forth can we track to show progress on top priority needs identified? So what are those tracking mechanisms that are already established? We get familiar with those as part of the annual report. So as we look back on previous reports and anticipate what's going to be reported in the future in annual report version 2.1, we want to ensure that we are well aware of what's going to be asked in the tracking so that we can track it along the way, right? But we're able to ask questions initially to identify how important those needs are, right? So this is an awareness of what tracking mechanisms are in place, and then how do those align with the needs that we're hearing out in the community. So we're required in our plan, table 2, in the Roma application section, to include some of that language. Question 8, which public benefits or resources are underutilized by eligible populations in our service area, and why may that be? So this is identifying gaps in our system or areas where we just are not succeeding with the level of participation that we may have anticipated, right? And that gives us an idea of how we conduct our outreach, how we engage in our partnerships, and how we look at our own case management to make people aware that those services are there, and that we're linking folks up with the right services, and not just taking a scattershot approach to making people just aware of where they're going. We have an opportunity to navigate or assist with navigation there. And that obviously helps us out again with linkages, causes of poverty, and then how it is that we build our service delivery system. Question 9, how are changes to labor market trends like the gig economy and automation, AI, and so forth affecting employment prospects for low-income individuals in our region? What is technology doing to the state of the available jobs, right? So we can anticipate trends in the marketplace. So if we've got opportunities for developing our workforce, we know what skills we can arm um, our clients with that will help them on an ongoing basis, especially for the sustainability of their work. Of course, that goes into our CAT plan in the employment and training activity section. It also informs our youth development strategies. So keeping an eye on the future of work. And then 10 of 10 is what funding sources can be braided to maximize resources and address unmet identified needs in our community needs assessment. This is a great way to take a look at all funding opportunities that are either federal or state government based, maybe even local, or to look outside of that into other non-governmental funding sources, um, things like foundations or other private funding, right? So um, understanding that CSBG is a fantastic leveraging tool really helps us to take advantage of that and know what other funding opportunities are out there. You can also consider this as what kinds of fee-for-service options are out there. In California and in many states that see the Medicaid um, Section 1115 waivers, providing additional funding to social services organizations to meet social determinants of health is a fantastic way of diversifying agencies' funding and also taking advantage of those funding mechanisms that are really out there to assist the community. Our agencies are poised to provide those kinds of services and often are targeted to be the stewards of those funds. So keeping an eye on that and building it into your community action plan is very helpful. Okay, so those are 10 analysis tools that we can use, questions that we can ask of our community needs assessment data. That's everything, right? All of those data sources that we pull together, and then also thinking about the direct feedback that we get, and that we're probably analyzing right now. If you're in a watching this as we recorded it, we're in the midst of the analysis and the community action plan writing process right now. So um, hopefully those questions help you out. I will open the floor though now for additional questions or suggestions of questions that you've asked your data that have been really helpful for you in the past. So we've got a couple of folks that are here in the room with us. If you've got any ideas that you'd like to share, you want to drop those either in the chat or come off of mute and let us know right now. Okay, well, hearing none now doesn't mean that we don't have them. So what we can do instead, if you've got ideas that you think would assist other agencies, other questions that you ask of your data or other data sources that you've used and found helpful, please feel free to email those to me. My email address is on the screen here is lheiner@calcappa.org. And we'd love it if you would provide us just a little feedback on the resources that we've shared with you today. If you can find them useful, if you use some of those questions in your data assessment process, And as you are all developing your community action plans, if there is any assistance that we can provide, please let us know. We're happy to hear what challenges you may have and see where we can provide solutions or link you up with the experts that you need. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you at the next one.